Welcome back to Season 2 of Conversations with Colie podcast. I'm your host, Nicole Miller, the author of the book series A through Z Guide to Raising a Good Human, a book series that I wrote to start the communication process between parents and children, starting from birth and why conversation is important. This year, I want to invite you to join me and my guests as we talk about all the subjects and topics that we hear about in everyday life, like human trafficking, grief, relationships, near-death experiences, and all the insights that we can learn from these subjects and topics, and how to look at things from both sides of the spectrum without using bias. Join me and my guests this season as we heat up the summer and the airwaves with our hot topics, and we start opening the doors and shaking out the rugs that we have been carrying with us through generations to truly be the change.
Welcome back to another episode of Conversations with Colie. Today I'm talking with Charlene Cabral. Charlene is an intuitive massage therapist. What is an intuitive? We're about to find out today. Welcome, Charlene.
Thank you for having me.
I hope I said your last name right. I didn't even ask.
You did.
So first we're going to do an icebreaker question. What brings you joy?
What brings me joy? And that's like a loaded question, right? Because do people always have right at the top of their head what brings joy? And the thing that came to me was family. I love spending time with my kids. We've been on a few vacations, and even though, they're adult children, but they still drive you nuts from time to time. That's what brings me joy, is spending time. I love sitting in my yard, hanging out with my friends, and just being. I love, the other night I went out with a friend, and I love even the sharing of, she has questions and you can just see people shift. Believe it or not, that's what brings me joy, because it's like if we can all be in what I call that ebb and flow, it's calm, it's peaceful, and you don't feel that inner angst, that anger, whatever the word is for you. So
I think I agree with you 100%, because that's the stuff that brings me joy. And like you said, adult children do drive you nuts sometimes, but I think that's the most fun part about being like mom kid, is the whole growth process. So that's amazing. How did you find yourself on the intuitive path?
Interesting. How did I find myself on the intuitive path? Well, it always seems to start when you're a kid, right? And when I was a kid, I had maybe and I do this, incorrect perception of being alone, because I was the middle child and my brother and my sister always had something going on. I was left out. And it seems like being alone was an incorrect perception, because I realized you're not alone unless you're with yourself. So you learn to trust yourself. You learn to follow your inner gut. And it was interesting, even as early as 16, when I started in the insurance business, people would just show up and start telling me things or asking me things. And it just kind of flowed from there. And then it's more and more and more. So I would say that's probably how it started.
Yeah. And so how did that progress through your life and into your workspace?
Well, and it's interesting. That's a great question, because what I've learned and share with people more and more on a regular basis is, I think our lesson is about being, right? So the more, and as I'm saying it, I'm getting chills through my whole body. It's like when we learn to be, then you're paying attention to the signs. So, not getting upset that jobs don't show up, that relationships don't show up, trusting that there's a bigger plan. And if I say God, I don't mean to offend anybody, whatever your God is, whatever you believe in, right? When you just trust and follow that guidance, it happens. And I think maybe in my 40s, I had all three of my kids, but they were still young. I was working at an insurance agency, And I just had a knowing that something was going to happen. I had like this inner knowing, or maybe a thought, a message, whatever people believe it to be. And it said something like, you're here to do huge things. I was like, okay, don't know what that is. But then I lost my job, didn't have insurance, so just went along trusting and believing. I said, you know what? We're not gamblers, but we're going to trust that everything's okay. Well, my husband at the time, he lost his job. And then I found out that I had stage 4 breast cancer. And then I found out that he was filing for divorce. So
Oh my gosh, all at once.
all at the same time. And so again, that intuition is, even though you feel called to, oh, maybe I should take a job or I should do this, don't get defeated when it doesn't work out, because the fear comes up to say, oh, I need the money to take care of things. But for some reason, it all works out. And it's just evolved into different things. And you learn to have confidence, more confidence in yourself, where I can just explain things to people and I don't care if they don't believe me. I don't care if they think I'm nuts, because I know I'm not. And it's like, that's just where you're at. So you learn to, intuition is also about accepting where you're at and what happens in your life. And what I say to people is, when we accept, it's like surrendering. It's not saying what happened is right or it's wrong. It's just like surrendering. And surrendering is going deeper into your intuition, knowing that that happened for a reason to get me where I need to go.
Yeah. Is everyone capable of being intuitive? Because sometimes people will say like only women, because we have the babies and we have that natural instinct. But is it possible for people to learn to be intuitive?
We all have it. We're that's a gift we were all born with. But everybody has their own way of approaching it, and it looks different. And the reason why I think people either don't feel comfortable with it or they fight against it, they don't believe in it. My dad calls it, he says, get away from me with your voodoo stuff, you know. But you know, he's something happened the other day, and he finally opened up to a suggestion I gave to him. And I was like, okay, do you have to get that deep into fear before you're willing to trust it, which is trusting yourself. Right? And so we all have it. It's just, if we're like anything, are we open to it? Somebody, you know, you're saying intuition, somebody could say, I want money, I want love, I want this. But even though you're saying you want it, if you're saying this, right, that it's kind of two hands, right? So I want it, right? You're saying this, I want it, but then this is the receiving hand and you go in, so it's like this. And it's, no, you're never going to achieve that intuition. You're never going to achieve the love or the house or the money or whatever you want if you're doing that. Come on, but blocking it. So we have to understand how you're out of alignment with what you want, right? Which is in our head, versus what we believe on a cellular level. And when you can put it, that's where I say that ebb and flow happens. And that's intuition, right? Because then you learn to trust what's here and not, and I've always been an analytical person. So I just learned to, you know, and now when I realize I want something, but it's not showing up, I go, okay, well, it's that ebb and flow isn't there. This isn't in alignment with this.
Or when bad things are happening, maybe what is a lesson I can take from this to keep moving forward? I think a lot of people don't see that. They just see something bad is happening to me.
Correct. And even that word, right? We have to label things just as humans. And I'm not judging it, because I say things too, but I've learned to, I catch people on words to try to make it lighter for them. And I want people to do the same with me, because we're human. But see how we think things are good or it's bad. And that's what keeps us stuck in I'm worthy, I'm deserving. If we think something that happened to us, rather than thinking it happened for us, is bad, right? Then you go, oh, that's what I'm worthy and deserving of, the bad. When really all those things I shared with you, losing my job, my husband filing for divorce, like not having insurance, finding out I had stage 4 birth. It was all opportunity. So when things happen, it doesn't feel good. And people can't necessarily see the gift in it. And I have many clients and friends that will reach out even in the moment and ask, because you might need your soul, your feelings, your emotions, whatever you want to call it, gets stuck in what I call the quicksand, and you just can't get out because we're stuck in the story of what happened. And just so people don't think I'm minimizing what could happen, right? A dear friend of mine is coming to mind right now, and her son, who grew up with my children, turned 19, and within 4 days of turning 19, got into a bad car accident with, let's see, like emotions come up.
Yeah.
But got into a bad car accident, and somebody else was in the car, and they were both killed. So yeah, she gets stuck in the quicksand, and it's understandable, right? How much sadness, how much grief is there. And I know that's a big focus for you, is grief.
Yeah.
Understanding like the opportunity, because when you're stuck in that quicksand, how much of life mirrors that, right? That's what I deserve. I deserve to be maybe punished. So are we self-sabotaging and punishing ourselves because of what happened? And I'll give you an example. She reached out over the weekend. Well, no coincidence. I accidentally butt dialed her, and I didn't have time to text and say that was a butt dial. The next day she calls me, and it was meant to happen, because the next day she was in a place. Something had happened. And as we chatted about it, it was, and I won't like share anything just in case people connect with the story. I said to her, can you see what happened with those two individuals we're talking about? And she was like, no. And I said, what are they showing you? I don't know. And so I'll suggest things so that you, because I don't want to say something and you think I'm telling you. I want to suggest, and then you be curious about it and figure it out. Because so many times, even when I've taken classes, people will be like, oh, that's yours to figure out. All right, but if you don't give me any guidance, like, to me, how can you help? So I like to give them some guidance, and they can see what's true to them, and then a different flavor of that unfolds. So what I'm referring to is both of these people, one's kind of doing something to destroy a relationship, or my friend thinks she is, with another individual. And it's like, okay, then that person decided to put the brakes on relationship with you right now. And what are they teaching you? They're teaching you that they're choosing themselves. When do you ever choose yourself? Even when we get stuck in the quicksand, are we choosing ourselves, or are we allowing ourselves to go deeper down into the funnel, right? Because that situation reminds us of the past situation.
Right.
Because I'm not worthy, I'm not deserving. So up here, you think you're worthy and deserving, but then here's out of alignment, and you don't have that ebb and flow. So and then when you have that, I can feel, and also the way they're speaking, you can feel that they've come out of the quicksand even a little bit. It's enough to raise their vibration, because when you're so far down, it's I've had friends that get suicidal, and it's so I don't want to ever tell anybody that's the right solution for you, right? I want to give them hope, because it's just learning how to raise yourself out of that. And again, you go, how does that relate to this? Because believe it or not, it's helping you to, when I plant that seed and you look at it and you become curious, you say, wow, that's true. And I've never chosen myself. Right. So in the situation, that person had a path, or whatever happened had a path. I'm just thinking of my friend right now. So when I've shared that with her, I said, you don't know what their contract was to be here. You don't know what this young man, I don't know the other individual, but he has affected so many people by him dying, right?
Yeah.
And see how you smiled? And
Yeah.
it's like that gives you hope. Your heart opens, because even though there's sadness in what happened, if that's what that person came here to do, you have to allow them to be, right? And be expansive rather than grieving. At some point, there's a process. You do need to have the sadness and the grief. It's just we need to know when to say, wow, now I need to lift myself up. Because would that person really want you to be in that? No.
Yeah.
And if they do, then you need to look at it in a different way and check in with your intuition about, why did I think that I deserved that?
Right. 100%. I know for myself, when my son passed away, I was only 17, but I had already lived such a horrible childhood. So it was just like, I felt like I was in a storm of just all this bad stuff. So to me, the world was a place that was out to get me. And when he passed away, there was an event in my 16-year-old life where I felt his death was karma for whatever action that was. That wasn't even an action of my own fault. I found out later. But in my 16 and 17-year-old brain, this is karma for that. Why do we have a tendency to see it as something bad that is happening to us personally? So the death of my son, why was I in a focus of, this is my fault and this is my lesson that the universe is teaching me?
Again,
to be in a negative way.
Yes, an excellent question, because what I've come to believe is what I call incorrect thoughts, feelings, emotions, beliefs, perceptions. And then some people get triggered. Why are you telling me I'm wrong? Why are you telling me I'm incorrect? And it's just be curious and just explore our current thought process, our feelings, our emotions, and beliefs, which are out of alignment, right? Is because of what happened in the past. Like you said, childhood. So you had a real crappy childhood. And then it's like, oh my God, well, that's what I believe I deserve. So then there's a book by Don Miguel Ruiz called The Four Agreements, right? And I think he now has the fifth agreements out. But I'm also in insurance and I teach insurance. And when I teach an ethics class, I always bring that up. And I explain how we have you have ethics and you have morals, right? Okay. Ethics are what are taught to you. Like somebody's pushing it on you. You should do this. This is the way you should.
The rules.
The rules, right? So that's what you have up here. But your internal, your compass, your intuition is your morals, what you truly believe. So I explain ethics and morals this way. When it's in alignment, it's this way. But when people are coming at you this way, which is your childhood and what you felt and believed, then you think, I'm less than, right? See how you're less than. And it's coming at you like this, right? Whereas some people then take on so angry from childhood, they become like narcissistic. And I always call it the ruler, right? You have number 1 and you have 12. Where are you on the ruler? So if you're number 1, it always has to be about you, the narcissist, and I'm not being fresh. Why do they do what they do? Is because of what happened to them. So now they're choosing themselves, but not from a good place. Right. Again, I just labeled it good versus bad. It's unconscious is what it is. Right. It's safety. So when you're not in your core, your horror line, you're coming from your defense, which could be the quicksand. It's whatever we do to keep ourselves safe. So instead of society coming at us like this, now you're the narcissist, you're the bully, you come at it like this because you're trying to be safe. So you're pushing against it. And what happens is when we're not accepting, which is surrendering, it doesn't have to be right. It doesn't have to be wrong. That's just what it was. And then people get angry about, well, why was I born into that family? You agreed. You asked to be born into that family because it's part of your lesson. If you were born into a different family, you wouldn't be working on that lesson. So you had to go through all of that crap, if you will, in order to get you to where you are. And
Mhm.
everybody has a different story about it. Some
Mhm.
people don't believe that. And I say, listen, my kids have been listening to this since they were in utero, right? And I remember my middle son, who unfortunately went through, even out of the three kids, he went through a really hard time because his father was abusive. And it was
Right.
because he didn't know that he hated himself because of what happened to him in his childhood. So he wanted kids and he loved them, except they drove him nuts because his way of being was it had to appear to be perfect. So then
Right.
he would be verbally abusive and physically abusive. And my incorrect perception of your vows is for better or worse. So I
Mhm.
thought, all right, I'm just going to keep saving and taking care of these kids. But before the middle child got to that point, I can visualize this as I'm saying it to you. I was in the bathroom getting myself ready, and he comes up the stairs and he pops his little head around the door and the wall, and he goes, "Mom, I'm so glad I chose you as a mom." Yeah. So
Yeah.
if you really pay attention and listen to what, and the more we get into this, you do hear things.
Yes.
My grandfather was passing at, say, 97 or 98 years old, just from old age. Nobody wanted to leave, and I didn't want to leave the hospital because I wanted to be there. And nobody heard him say this but me. He said, I'm getting the chill. So he's here. He said, "Go home. I'm going to be here till tomorrow." I didn't know enough to ask. And that's
Yeah.
your intuition, right?
Yeah.
So see how it shows up in different ways. I didn't know to say, I'm Polish, so George. So I didn't know to say, "Hey, George, what time are you going to be here till?" Right? And I was afraid to leave after midnight because now it's the next day. He didn't
Yeah.
pass until 3 o'clock in the afternoon, but he knew he was going to be here.
Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah.
it's so tying back to, and I know I kind of fragmented there, but you never know what people are going to get. And it also ties into, how does that affect like my life as, I'm an insurance instructor. I sell insurance, I teach insurance, I'm a massage therapist. So it affects every aspect because I'm just being me. And if you got a problem with what I'm saying, then who cares? That's your problem. And I don't need to be fresh. It's like, for some reason I showed up in my life and you showed up in mine. And is it for me to see if I can help you with whatever? And is it for me to be okay with being, even though you're giving me pushback? Yeah. So to answer your original question, see how it evolves in your life, that I'm teaching this, even when I'm teaching insurance ethics,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so it just comes about, and it's trying to give yourself some love, compassion. Look at the things you feel you didn't get as a child, right? And if you
Mhm.
can start giving that to yourself, then that's a way of changing what shows up in your world. Because if you think you're not worthy, you're not deserving, then what shows up, you get in that quicksand, right?
Mhm.
Whereas if you become conscious of what's showing up in your life, I always tell people in every aspect of my life, look at the people that are in your life and make a list of the qualities they possess, all of them. Because another thing I found out years ago is I rejected somebody who was interested in me as a relationship because I didn't feel I was worthy and deserving of those qualities. So then I attract the people who are doing this, right?
Right. Right. Right.
Instead of this. And it
Right.
potentially could have been this. But if I don't give those qualities to myself, then I'm going to be doing this. I want it, but don't give it to me.
Right.
So,
Right.
but when you do that, you can understand, why do I feel I deserve this in life? Why is all of this, karma showing up?
Mhm.
And it's because we have to, again, that ruler, you started here and you got to 12. Now you need to undo those incorrect perceptions by looking at them, giving yourself love, compassion, kindness, those qualities you may not be giving to yourself,
Mhm.
so that you can heal that. And you heal it by becoming consciously aware of, wow, I was just a little kid and I was unconscious and I didn't know. And
Mhm.
believe it or not, I've come to realize our kids are a gift in so many ways, because they are a gift, but they're also a gift if we're conscious and we want to learn, because they're showing us about our incorrect perceptions. We can just keep peeling it back.
Yep. Yep. And in retrospect, from my situation, being that 17-year-old that was, felt the world was coming at her and just trying to hold her down, 28 years later, the realization became that my son's life was to show me my future if I stayed with my first husband, and I didn't listen because I wasn't in a headspace to hear it. And so that whole karma story I told myself in the beginning was not at all accurate, because that's not what we're here for. Let's talk about life contracts, because I don't think people understand what a life contract is.
Great. And if I can, everything means something. So when you saw me just write something down, I believe you said this all started happening for you around 18, and then you said 28.
Or 28 years later, yes.
Okay. Well, the reason, like ding ding, and something told me to write it down, is if you look into numerology. So like intuitive massage, I don't know how this came to be, but like everything just blends together. That's why sometimes somebody might go, how do you know all of this? I get, pay attention to this, pay attention to the colors that they're wearing. So when you just said 18 and then 28 years later, it all means something. Because in numerology, if you add the numbers to get it down to a single digit, 8 and 1 is 9. Numerology only goes up to like 9 numbers if you're looking at the alphabet, right? So 9 is about endings. And then you said 28 years later. What is 8 and 2? 10. So 1 and 0 is 1. New beginnings. Right?
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So it's, and see how you like smiled. That's what brings me joy, because then people go, oh, there's the aha. And they can understand. But when we're in it, we can't necessarily understand it, which takes us to your question about what is a life contract, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And not everybody believes this, right? But hopefully the people that are listening to your show either believe it, or they're looking for things to spark that unfolding. So with that being said, there are so many books out there. One that I was introduced to was Soul Contracts. I believe it's by Carolyn Miss, but I could be wrong about the author. But it talks about how, again, we come here to Earth to learn our lessons. And to me, again, if you understand why you're even here, doesn't it make it easier for, why am I putting myself through all this abuse? Like, why did you bring me into this world? Well, there's the why, right? So, but before we incarnated, we said something like, all right, I'm going to come to Earth and I'm going to learn this lesson. So whatever the lesson is, and so many times I use this as an example. What if your lesson was to learn forgiveness? Something has to happen, maybe multiple times, in order for you to be able to forgive. Right? We can't just get here and go, all right, I'm going to forgive.
Right.
So that's your contract as to what you came here to do or learn, teach. But it's ebb and flow. So people are showing up to teach you, and you're showing in their life to teach them. But that's the next part of the contract. Why did you and I connect? Right? How did that even happen? It was through our mutual friend, Nicole Magic, right?
Exactly.
So, and
after I fell, and that's the whole thing. It was me posting about a fall, and both of you came in. First Nicole, then you. But yes, back to your.
Yeah, but had Nicole not even said, oh, my friend Charlene would like, this is a good question or something, had she not posted that and it captured my name, I wouldn't have seen anything that you had to share, because there was no connection at that point, except for what was cosmically connection. So before we agreed to incarnate, we decided that at some point you and I were going to come together, and maybe it was to help uplift people with what's going on in their world, to try to help them to look at things differently so they get out of the quicksand. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
But so that's how it works, is the contract is I'm coming to earth to learn, to heal something, to evolve and transform something so that I can get rid of that in my DNA. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So then in order for me to do that, I need to have people in my life. So that means my parents, hence the reason I decide I want to be in relationship with mom and dad. So it all happens like energetically, right? While they're sleeping, maybe beforehand. Okay, 20, 30 years from now, you agree to bring Charlene in the world. Here she is, right? So
Mm-hmm.
then I'm in relationship with my parents and the other siblings that also agree. So it's all, if you will, prearranged. It's no coincidence. Nothing's a coincidence. And when we can look at it that way, then be curious about, if it's not a coincidence, then why did I fall down? Why did I have stage 4 breast cancer and lose a job? And why? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Who cares what the answer is? The answer is your awareness, which sets you free. But again, does that happen in order for you to, it's in alignment with what you're here to learn, what you're here to heal, what you're here to do. And I'll share one more example. Is a friend of mine was so angry about this little boy that had cancer. And he goes, this doesn't make any sense. Why did God give this little boy cancer? And I said, think about the impact he's made on everyone. And he got still angry with me. What do you mean by that? That's nonsense. And I go, you don't have to believe what I'm saying to you, but be curious and explore this. First of all, that was that little boy's contract, right? Maybe he wanted to come in and teach people about love and compassion. How can I do that? Maybe I'm going to come in and get cancer, right?
Nice.
Some people that are watching this could get angry by that, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's yours to learn. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying, be curious, because now they're having fundraisers. And this friend of mine, he has a shirt there that he bought to support this little boy who has cancer. I go, this is what I'm talking about. This is how he affected everybody. He has people coming together, paying a nominal fee, showing love and compassion, because you can give it to him, but are you giving it to yourself?
Right.
Because what we do out here, it's kind of like that, right? It's like you're going like this. I want to receive, but hold on. So now it's the other hand. I want to receive. I want love and compassion, but hold on. I don't deserve it. So you give it, but when you go, I want to receive it. So it's like this, but you're blocking it. It's all about learning balance and being aware of what shows up in our lives, because it's no coincidence, and it could be part of your karmic relationship, right? That sacred contract. And it could be a sacred contract because it's to show you what you incorrectly thought, felt, believed, that perception as a younger child. And now you're out there in the world, and that's all that shows up for you. So when we're ready to learn the lesson, I go, wow, that's what keeps showing up. That's what I think I deserve. And then when we become consciously aware, this becomes in alignment with this, and it's like this instead of this or this.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's kind of talk about that post that brought us together. So I had fallen down because I wasn't paying attention to the little bit of a lift on a curb. And I posted my injuries, and I said something to the effect of, when they start passing out replacement parts, I need the left side because I always fall to the left. Nicole came in and said something about my gallbladder, if I'm remembering, and like that's where you carry grief and this and this. I can't remember verbatim what the conversation was, but that is how you and I first aligned. And then you said, if you can remember,
and I know I have it somewhere, but
right,
and was writing down. And you know, we were talking about this before. I can bring up what I said and like read it, but I'd rather, even now as you're saying, like, because that's your intuition. right?
Yeah.
So what I explain to people, because they say, what is intuitive massage? People have described it as massage with therapy, because I can explain this means this and this means that based on where the pain is in the body. But also, as people talk and we're massaging, we find out what's going on. Or as you're massaging, then they're like, oh, I feel. And then I've had people say, did I ever tell you about, and I hope this is okay, I'm not trying to trigger anybody. Did I ever tell you about this sexual encounter I had? Like, what would bring that up as I'm right?
Right.
But it's not just for me to share with you, because I had another friend say, oh, I thought you were just going to be doing, and I said, no, I'm so glad you said that, because intuition isn't giving you power away to the other person to say, tell me, right? It's to help you have that awareness of, wow, I got pain going on here. What's that all about? So what comes up is your cellular memory of, wow, and this experience, I was gagging, so I almost thought I was going to be dying. And then going further, I find out she has sleep apnea. Well, why do you have sleep apnea, right? So sorry, I fragmented there, but
No, you're good.
It's all important, because one thing comes up for another reason.
Mm-hmm.
So even as you were just bringing us back to that post, is one thing that screamed at me is you said, I'm not paying attention, right? It's almost like an energetic slap upside the head. We're not paying attention to the words, but yeah, throughout life, we're not paying attention. So these things that keep happening to us is really for us, which is kind of like that story you heard about the priest. There's a flood and refuses to go, God's going to save me, right? And the police come and this come, and the guy ends up drowning. And then he gets to heaven, he goes, God, I was waiting for you. And he goes, I sent you the police, I sent you a boat,
Yes.
right? So those are all the messages, but
Yes.
we're not taught to pay attention to them. So when you say not paying attention, I got the like energetic slap upside the head. And it's interesting, right? I'm slapping up the right side, which is the male side of the body. And it's not to say it's a male, it could be a male. It could be the qualities of a male, which could be different from person to person, because everybody has their own, what they think a male is versus a female. It could also be a female that holds a lot of male qualities. Like, clearly I'm female, but I resonate more with the male energies of action, doing, right? So giving. And I remember years ago when I heard that, I got angry. Okay, are you telling me that men give and women just take, right? And I was like, but it brought me back to those incorrect perceptions from childhood, where I was mad at dad for controlling mom, and I was mad at mom for being so stupid to be controlled. So I'm going to take care of everything. And then what ends up happening? I end up in a marriage. And it was good until it wasn't good, but it wasn't good because now is the opportunity for me to learn my lessons and move forward. But I was indirectly being controlled, right? So what we fight against, being controlled, ends up coming, but in a different flavor. So I wanted to say that so you can understand the right side versus the left side. So you said you need the left side, right? And so when you think about the left side, that's the female side. So clearly you are female. Is that about the qualities of a female, which we always associate with love, kindness, compassion, right? And some people say to me, oh no, that's not how I see the female. Okay, that's why you need to figure out your own stuff, because even as we're everything. So if somebody doesn't see females as love, kind, compassion, they're probably not giving them themselves those qualities, right? And even though you do hold that, right, those qualities, do you give them to yourself?
Right.
And then you look at, now you fell, and people will say, oh, I hurt myself because I fell, or because of this, and I go, no, explore, like kind of the chicken or the egg, what came first? And since we can't come from a bloodline, what's in that DNA is now in us. So the emotions are already there that you're trying to get rid of based on what your contract was for you to do. So in order for that to happen, you can't have a situation that's like this, because it's almost like, I'm here to learn forgiveness. Am I going to learn to forgive? No, I need somebody to punch me or do something, right? So the sidewalk that you tripped over had to be like, blunt trauma to jolt it out of the body. So then you look at where it happened, and was the cut and the bruise and everything on the right side or the left side?
It was all the left.
All
And
right.
I habitually have injured the left side. Like I have had a surgery because I broke that ankle. That ankle had been rolled several times throughout my life. And so it was always the left-hand side.
Okay. And so the ankle, I'm also a reflexologist. So in reflexology, and I'm going to say this, people go, how do you do? I don't know. My profile is a knowledgeable achiever. And I believe years ago, like being in insurance and learning all these modalities, I felt fragmented. And it wasn't until my now ex-husband gave me the best gift ever, which was the gift of divorce, that I went to massage school. And then I'm massaging, and all of these things that I was doing separately came together, and that's intuitive massage. Because sometimes they need reflexology, sometimes they need to know about polarity, you need to know the energetic lines, you need to blend in the chakras, you need, right? So it's all of it. But I say that because, and look, I'm like, how come I'm scratching here? See, curious, it's on the left side. So this is a joint. Joints have to do with the ether element. So that's opening up the ether element, which is creating space. Well, what are you creating space from? Well, the arms are an extension of the heart. So am I creating space to open the heart, not to other people, to myself? It's always about you. Right? We're always taught to look out here. It's about here. So like you damaging everything on the female side is, think back to your childhood. Have you been beating yourself up enough? The doing, the action of beating yourself up, right? You've been punching yourself your whole life. So now these things are happening to say, hello, wake up, right? Start showing yourself love and compassion and kindness. Excuse me. All right, something's coming out the throat chakra, speaking our truth. So even this is a joint. A joint is ether, which is creating space. Well, and sometimes I feel stuff for people. So is this your grief that's coming out? Excuse me. Is it some of mine? Because it's energy, I already be coughing because somebody that's like listening, who knows? Right. But, so this is the throat chakra speaking our truth. So it could have been like my son who was screaming and yelling and swearing for stuff to stop. And it wasn't until I got there and tried to save him. And then my ex would say, you should be protecting me. You're my wife. There's that old, what I call June Cleaver programming. Oh, no, siree. Like, I'm here to love and support everybody. But when you stop beating my kids, then there's another thing coming. And they're going to be top and not you. But we don't always experience that based on what happened to us. So like my son, he then developed thyroid issues. And I know it might seem like I'm fragmenting, but see how one thing flows into.
No, to me, you're not. To me, you're making complete sense.
Yeah. Well, somebody that could be watching is like, oh my God, she's all over the place. But that's, again, paying attention to the intuition, because it's going to answer your question by showing all these different things. So like my son never had thyroid issues. All of a sudden has thyroid issues. We go to the doctor and then he wasn't growing. Well, think about it. Energetically, your feet, your heels, you're putting the brakes on. You don't want any more of this. You just want to stop right here. So I go, and of course, modern medicine, they think I'm a Fruit Loop, but I really don't care what you think. So I'm fighting for my child. So then they align me with one of the top doctors in Boston for thyroid. Well, this person was, I guess, angry with me because she just wanted to medicate him. And I was like, no, I don't believe in just medicating without doing my due diligence. And she was horrified and said, well, babies are born with this, which shows you that ancestral, it's in your blood, you're born with it, right? So there's a reason. And they've
scientifically proven that organs have can adopt like the memories and the emotions of like our mothers and grandmothers and things.
Exactly. It's DNA. So when people think I'm nuts when I'm saying this,
Mm-mm.
do you believe
No,
in
there
biology?
is scientific proof behind it.
Correct. We have quantum physics. We have bioenergetics. There's so many things. Just do your research. I can't tell everybody everything here, right?
Right.
But this doctor was triggered by me, and it was beautiful. She said, well, you know, he has other symptoms. And I said, what are you talking about? And she goes, he doesn't move his bowels. So she looks at him and goes, right? And he's like 5 years old and says, you don't move your bowels. And he goes, what does that mean? She goes, well, you don't poop. And he goes, that's true. And she goes, see? And then out of the mouths of babes, he goes, or he says, not he goes, he says, well, if I eat, I poop. If I don't eat, I don't poop. And I went,
oh, how cute.
Right?
Yeah.
So I said to her, listen, I'm not telling you I'm not going to do something for the best and highest good of my child. I'm telling you I want to do my due diligence and not picking on those parents, but shame on them for not having the courage and the confidence to know to go the next step, right? Because the old programming, believe in what other people are telling you instead of your own intuition, right? So even there, it tells you that. So, and maybe that's why I had to loop around to that story. So we made an appointment, and because she was okay with me doing my research and coming back. I get home and I get a phone call from the pediatrician, and the pediatrician says, what just happened? I go, what are you talking about? Oh, this doctor's ready to report you to child services.
Oh, man.
I know. I go, why? I just made another appointment. She was okay with that. And then it came to me. And I said, am I the first person that has ever like questioned this doctor? And they said, yes. I'm like, wow. So I go, I think we need to find a different doctor. I'm not having somebody like, again, I want this. I want to teach my children this. I don't want somebody who's stuck in whatever happened to them that they thought I'm going to save the world and be pushing stuff on me. No.
Yes.
No. I want to hear what you have to say and then make my own decision. So that was that. Now going back to you, right? So we had to have something happen. You had to fall, and it was the lower leg. So when you look at the chakras, the legs, and I'm going to stand up for a second. The first chakra, right, base of your tailbone, down corresponds with, I'm sure people are going to be excited that I gave them some visuals. But I like to make people laugh too, you know? Anyway, so anything from that first chakra down has to do, or from that tailbone down, is first chakra. Family, foundation, beliefs, safety, right? There's a number of things in there. So when you think about it, you have the emotions of your ancestors in you. And when you said about the organs, you're absolutely right. So when organs come to mind, if people are experiencing grief, that's the lungs and the large intestine. I'm doing this because these are the meridians. And when you go for acupuncture or acupressure, they're going to trace and know where to go to put the needle, right? So those lungs and the large intestine hold the emotion of grief. And then if you're not working through it, those situations could show up in your life that give you more grief, right? And it just reaffirms that I'm worthy and deserving of this because we're out of alignment. So when you fell and you had that huge gash and it was on like the bone, right? Now bones,
it was on my knee bone. Yeah.
So, awesome. So, but I remember it coming down, right? We're going to go to the knee in 1 second. So the bone is about fear. And sorry if anybody sees how terrible my nails are, I need to get them done. That's my self-care along with getting my own massage. But anyway, see, and that's me judging me because I like to look, right? Because it makes me feel good. So what makes you feel good?
Yeah.
Which brings you out of that grief and out of that place. And who knows, maybe that's why I had to go to the nonsense of my nails. Who knows?
Yeah.
So your shin bone and the knee, it's a bone. The emotion that's carried in the bones are fear. Now, when I'm massaging people, bones are dense, but you can feel areas. Like if you just like touch your bones, can you feel like, wow, that's deeper than what was over here? Why? And it's not because it's necessarily a different shaped bone. Um, Emotions are trapped there. So when it goes from fear to now really dense, it's anger. And it's just an emotion. Who cares? I tell people all the time, it's just an emotion. We all have them. So that's why people who really like deep tissue is because they can feel it that deep in their bones and they don't know that that's what they're trying to get out. But if we can connect it with the emotion that's trapped there, and they can either share what's going on or they can make the own connection and then it moves out of the body. And I know because I can feel it moving, right? And it does get intense because it's my pressure, right? Or I'm doing this, and then it hits that block in you, and then it feels like I'm doing this. But that's because your stuff is hitting mine and it intensifies. That's why a lot of times I'm always like, feel my pressure, feel my pressure. Oop, there's yours, right? So they can see and make the connection because that's what we're programmed to do, blame and shame and complain. But when we do that, we're not staying here in our core being ourselves. We're going, right. Colie did that to me. She created that pain because she's the, no, she's trying to help you to get it out. So right. When you look at the bone, that's the fear. Was it trying to open up and let go of the anger? And when people either fall or they break a bone, I can actually see this, picture this, breaking and then picture like smoke coming out.
Yeah.
That's what I see and feel when somebody has a break or a fracture, because the bone is breaking because the universe is saying, your energy is saying, it's time to get rid of that stuff. So break, right. Let it go. And then what came up? Blood, right? Blood has to do with joy or the lack thereof. You've been carrying around all this ancestral baggage in the form of emotions. How much joy are you experiencing, especially if you feel that you're entitled to what you put up with through childhood, which was only there to help you to get through your lessons so you are where you are in life. The thing is, our parents didn't know this stuff, so how could they tell you?
Right.
Right?
Right.
And then you said your knee, right? So the knee is a joint, correct? Usually in sessions, I want people to play along with me. So I'll be like, what's the knee? And they might look at me like I'm crazy. And I go, it's a joint, right? It's a bone. Yep. So bone's about fear, but a joint is the ether element, and that corresponds to creating space. And then when you look at where you're trying to create space from, it all depends on what's going on. But also if it's first chakra, joints are about being flexible, right? Are you flexible with yourself? No, if you're beating yourself up all the time, how flexible are you? So it's factoring that in. And then if you look at, let's say this is, I'll just use out here. Let's say that is your knee, right? Just because I don't want to like stick my knee up on the screen. So let's say this is your knee. You have energetic lines, right? Which correspond to the elements. They teach that in reflexology. They teach that in polarity. So when you look at that, I would say to somebody, where is the pain, right? Is it the whole knee, or is it more midline? Is it more lateral out here? Where is it? Because if it's closer to the midline of the body, right over here, then that could be the ether element, which is again creating space. Now, is that lining up with the big toe, which is the spleen, which is about worrying? So you're trying to let go of the fear and the worry, because underneath all emotions is fear. But some people go deeper into fear. And if you've ever seen it, you look at somebody and you can just see like the fear in their face or in their body, right? You can just feel it. There's no judgment in it. It's like they just didn't know where to go with it. So they're scared to death. And sorry, something else just came to mind. I was teaching an insurance class, and this was before I was even in massage school. So I'm massaging somebody's hands, and people started coming back from lunch, and they were like, oh, I want a hand massage. So I'm teaching the class and while I'm massaging everybody. And I get to this one girl, and all of a sudden my teeth go like this. And I'm like, what is that? Gripping? And And I was like, what is that? That's not me. And I look at her and I go, oh my God, that's you. And I got fear. And I said, what are you afraid of? And I got everything. And I go, you're afraid of everything? She goes, I am.
Oh.
And I don't know but see how we do that. Even that we think is coming from compassion, but that's sending them negative energy rather than. So I think I was meant to share that, because if anybody also has that going on, because they're afraid of moving forward because of everything that's happened to them, the bladder meridian is about fear. It's the water element. Bladder and kidneys have to do with fear. So the bladder meridian is your pinky toe. So you just give your pinky toe a pull. So when you're pulling it, it's bringing the energy down. Or if, you can't get a good grip on it, say it to a significant other, hey, pull my pinky toe. I just always tell people you don't want to pull the big toe, because in reflexology, that's the neck and that's the head. If someone has seizures, you're basically, disconnecting them. So you don't want to do that. You can move it around and you just can't pull like you would on the other toes. So I think that explains most of like your foot makes sense. And I don't remember everything else.
Yeah, well, and when y'all came and said what you had to say, what it kind of made me realize is when I broke my ankle, it came at a time that I had just started my new business. I had literally booked my second client. I was in a relationship that was not good. And it gave me the time and the space to lay in bed for 10 weeks, and things were evolving and changing. And it put me on a different path. So after I healed and my mind was right, I was able to say, you know what, I need to change everything. My business became more successful. I changed my living situation and became more independent and just started focusing on what I had set for myself back in my childhood of saying, I'm going through this, I'm going to use it to heal others. I wasn't able to do that through my life because I kept getting into those bad relationships. I kept getting into, grief situations and things like that and trying to deal with all that. So that break, after you pointed that out, it made me think like, wait a minute, I had to have that break happen so that I could lay in bed. And it happened when I started my business, but my business was still okay. That 10 weeks didn't make any difference. Those people waited for me. And then my business was able to grow after. The phone wasn't ringing during that 10 weeks, but it started ringing after. And so it was just all like it clicked it all together for me. Like, oh, this all makes sense.
And I'm sorry, how many weeks again? I heard you, but I want you to hear you.
10. New beginnings.
0 is 1 new beginnings. And
yes,
as you said, you were in a relationship, right? Which is 2 people, or you think it's 2 people, but the majority of the times is we might want something. We need to really explore what it is we're looking for externally, right? Because of what happened to us. We might be looking externally for love, acceptance, or approval, but you keep getting that rather than this, right? You're getting the defense stuff rather than your core. And I'm bringing this up because you talked about 2 clients and you said partnership. Now, when you think about 2, isn't that a partnership? Right? But you had to heal the partnership within that male and female. So you have the ebb and flow. And then if you're in a relationship now, or what you attract is going to be this instead of this, because my incorrect perceptions was I deserve this. So they're going to keep coming at me like the bully, right? Rather than like this. So it makes perfect sense. And, when you mentioned Nicole and the gallbladder, I don't want to like speak specifics because we've been working together for a while and clearing a lot of ancestral stuff. But yet after she did a lot of work, she ended up needing to get her gallbladder removed. And gallbladder holds the emotion of anger. It's the wood element. And it's the, when I'm massaging people, they go, hold on a second. You told me the gallbladder was about anger. How come you're saying the liver's about anger? Because everything's a pair, right? Too. So you have a yin meridian, you have a yang meridian. So it's understanding that. And again, was either Nicole and or her ancestors coming from always beating herself up, right? Instead of giving the liver, you can be angry, but be compassionate, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't need to be beating ourselves up like the action, the doing, the, the yang energy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why I say to people, and doesn't it make you feel better just knowing that there's an answer to everything?
Yes. Yes. And what's funny is I have never met you. I've not really even formally met Nicole yet. I'm going to do a podcast with her later. But the things that you both said, I looked at my life and said, yep, you're right. You're absolutely right. So I hope that this conversation kind of resonates with somebody else and makes sense for someone else's life.
Absolutely. And if you don't mind me asking, what is the tattoo you have on? Because color talks to me, tattoos talk to me.
So these are puzzle pieces. I have a son with Asperger's syndrome, and it's my initial and some of their initials.
Okay. Well,
and then the colors in it is like purple, blue, pink, and mainly black.
Yeah, I see the black. All right. So if you don't mind, since that's screaming at me right now, hold on one second. My pen went dead. So purple, blue, pink, and black. So again, I'm sharing that because does that make perfect sense? Why did you put that on your right hand rather than your left hand? Right?
Right.
Did the weight of all of that have to balance what's going on the left side? Something to explore, but also puzzle. Are you trying to figure out the puzzle of your life? And you put it on your hand rather than a thigh or anywhere else, right? The arms are an extension of the heart. So you're trying to figure out how to love yourself by figuring out the puzzles, right? And even if it's the action that needs to be taken, is it the doing that you need to do, which comes back to you, right? Comes back to you. If I'm doing it, it comes back to me. Here's the ebb and flow. It's coming to me, right to my heart, rather than like this. So when you look at that and then you explore the colors, purple, I'm sure you know, intuition. Pink is the high heart, giving yourself extra love and compassion when you're speaking your truth. Because a lot of times people could be saying, I'm speaking. My son was screaming, stop. And he would never stop, right?
Mm-hmm.
He would only stop when I'd go up there and save him and like attack him for what he was doing to the poor kid.
Mm-hmm.
But the bottom line is, we don't feel that we're speaking when we're not being heard, we're not being honored,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then what's his life like, right?
Mm-hmm.
So thank God he's always coming down this path to try to learn so he can heal all of that. So, and then black. And also what's interesting, I'm going to tie the black and the blue together in just a minute. But black, I always say to people, what color is the water? A lot of people will say blue, right? Because it
Right.
but really water is clear. So
Right.
we don't have all the crap in our way, right? It's clear. So the water element, which is second chakra right under the belly button, has to do with emotions. And we are attached to emotions because of what happened in the past. So we go, never again. So we're attached to the emotion because we think it's keeping us safe, but it's not keeping us in our core. It's keeping us in the defense, the quicksand, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at the second chakra, the colors of that element, the water element, are blue and black. So again, when you go deep, deep, deep into the ocean, people say, oh, it's black because it's dark down there. So where is the work that we need to do? In the water element, the emotions. And you got to go deep into those emotions to figure out what's really in there so that it can come forward.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting in how I tied that back when the puzzle pieces, because isn't that what we're doing in life? We're trying to figure out the puzzle so we can piece it together to have this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So thank you. So see, again, I don't know why things like catch. And this garnet or color you have, what color is that? It's like it looks like ruby.
This is, I think it's black. And then there's like there's some purple
Okay.
little jewels here.
All right. But it's the darker one. But again, that's black. So it's reaffirming and it's around your neck. So do you have to go deep into the water element and see how you smiled there? Because you have to keep doing the work to go deeper and deeper into your emotions so you can heal that throat chakra. And notice it also falls right here, like on the clavicle, a bone. I've had, and I don't know if all of this is coming together because 3 clients I work with yesterday, they presented with stuff going on in their throat. Actually, I went to the gym and the owner of the gym goes, Charlene, I got something right here. Can you move that? So I go, yeah, but it's not coming from there. I felt it was here, but actually what it was coming from here and it was scooping down around the scalp, right? So it's so complex what our emotions do, and it messes with us in these areas because there's different shaped bones and sizes of bones. So speaking the truth, right, there was something that needed to be said where it's like wrapping around the bone, fear of opening the heart because that lines up with the heart. And excuse me a second, when you go underneath, lines up in here because it's going to come around and line up here, right? It all traces right here. I almost jumped you the bird. So lines up with your middle finger, which is the pericardium, right?
Oh,
Which is the gatekeeper to the heart. So can we see how so the pains that you're holding in your body aren't really coming from where the pains are.
yeah.
And I had 3 people yesterday that showed up. And then I know, again, it's no coincidence. It mirrors yourself. So it's just reaffirming, Charlene, you got to keep doing that work. Open in your heart, open in your heart, open in your heart.
Yeah. Wow.
And
That's awesome.
following your intuition, which means you have to trust and believe in yourself. And trusting in yourself then means the process is unfolding exactly the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah, that's awesome. Charlene, where can people find you and follow you? And especially if they're interested in having a session with you.
Well, and thank you. So I'll give you some information and I can always pass some things on to you later as well, because I have a link tree that some people could be not local. So I've had clients that have had success even by talking. So I do offer sessions where it's like we talk about what's going on, and then I'll give you some recommendations as to what to do to like clear your aura and get, because we go to therapy, which is great, but where does it go from there? How does it leave the body? You have the awareness, but how do you get it out of the cells? It might be you're not in the area. I'll give you some techniques, and then you can go to a massage therapist and just be open to surrendering and releasing what needs to now move. So I'll give my phone number is 508-269-6774. Also, hold on one second. I'm going to bring it up on my phone so I can, my email address is ccabral@ccabralconsulting.com. So there's a double C. C for Charlene, last name Cabral, at C for Charlene, cabralconsulting.com. I just use the same address for everything. So that way you're not having to pop into everything.
Yeah, that's great.
And then I've been giving people like the access to my link tree, because my link tree, they can visit my treatment menu, sign up for my emails, promos, all of that, book a session, whatever. So if you go to Linktree, so it's linktr.ee, and it's under Intuitive Massage with Charlene, because that's the name of my practice.
Yeah,
And
awesome.
Any images or anything, like even if you don't remember the name, but you remember Charlene Cabral, any photos like on my website or everything, I don't want people to have to be searching. I don't put different types of images. You see me.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'll tell you what, this conversation has been awesome. And I'll tell you, I think I only looked at my script questions once. So this was great because it was so informative. And a lot of people are skeptical about intuition and what it even means. Some people think manifestation is like making the 3 wishes, and if it doesn't appear, then they get negative mindseted about it. I don't even think that's a word, but they get a negative mindset about it, and they really don't want to, they shut down a lot of it, but a lot of it really does work.
It
and
does.
it really is true.
It's true. And I'm sorry to interrupt you because I want to share this with all of you.
No, you're good.
Is the reason they keep making wishes or the affirmations and then nothing shows up is because your wishes, your affirmations are not in alignment with this. So you're doing this instead of this. So that means you need to figure out what's here to raise it to what you want, because you could say you want the love of your life, but if you look back at what you experienced in life, here goes, oh no, you don't deserve that. So you can wish, you can play the lottery, you can do whatever you want, but you're not going to manifest it because the affirmation is not in alignment with what your cellular memory believes is true for you.
That's so true. So true. Do you have any final thoughts you want to share with listeners?
Just keep doing your work is coming to me, you know, and if I can help, even if you're not from the area, go find me. I'm sure you can reach out to Colie, and I'll give you the sheet after, and you'll have it like for reference if people reach out. But just keep doing your work. Believe in yourself, because that's all you have. So many times people have said to me, my cousin said it to me this morning in a text, she's afraid of being alone. And I'm like, you're never alone if you're with yourself. That friend I told you about earlier, she's afraid of being alone. And Wayne Dyer once said that as long as you like the person you're with, you're not lonely.
Yeah, that's so true.
If you're lonely, you might explore that you don't think you're good enough for you. And you are. You wouldn't be here if you weren't. So
yeah. I agree with that.
On Earth.
Yes, exactly.
With us.
Exactly. Charlene, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I have loved this conversation.
As have I. Thank you so much for letting me share and go into all those different things. And I wish everybody the best.
Awesome.
Thank you for spending time listening to our conversation. If you enjoyed this and other episodes, please subscribe, like, and share so we can reach more listeners with our powerful messages. And stay tuned to hear about our affiliates and recommendations. They change from episode to episode.